Hey guys, tonight we're diving into a world of shadow secrets and sharp blades where the line between hero and villain is as thin as a dagger's edge. Imagine yourself cloaked in darkness, heart pounding as you slip through a medieval castle, silent as a ghost ready to strike. One wrong move, and it's game over. Sounds thrilling, right? But here's the thing: you probably won't survive this. Being a medieval assassin wasn't the glamorous high stakes adventure you see in movies. It was brutal, messy, and let's be honest, most people didn't make it out alive. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with your location and local time. I love knowing where you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You've seen them in movies, those shadowy figures who slip through the night, silent as a whisper, deadly as a viper. They're the stuff of legends, the medieval assassins cloaked in mystery and romance. But let's cut through the fantasy. The truth is a lot less glamorous and a lot more, well, messy. Forget the image of a sleek, untouchable killer darting through castles and vanishing without a trace. That's pure Hollywood fluff. In reality, being a medieval assassin was less about honor and skill and more about survival. You weren't some noble warrior fighting for justice. You were a tool wielded by the powerful to eliminate their enemies. And if you got caught, your employers weren't exactly lining up to bail you out. They'd probably deny ever knowing you. Take the Hashashin, for example. These infamous figures are often romanticized as fearless warriors shrouded in tales of daring and mystique. But the reality, they were a political weapon used by their leaders to sow terror and secure power. Their loyalty wasn't to some grand noble cause. It was to a master who dangled promises of paradise in exchange for their lives. These weren't dashing rogues living out epic adventures. They were people caught in a deadly game, knowing every mission could end in a shallow grave. Their reputation might sound thrilling, but their lives were anything but glamorous. Now picture your day-to-day existence as a medieval assassin. It wasn't all sneaking through torch-lit halls or outsmarting guards in dramatic chases. Most of your time was spent in the shadows, not the cool, mysterious kind, but the boring, nerve-wracking kind. You'd stalk your target for weeks, maybe months, memorizing their habits, when they ate, where they slept, who they trusted. Patience was your lifeline, but it came with a constant knot of dread. When the moment finally arrived, it wasn't a choreographed dance of blades. It was quick, brutal, and often sloppy. No high-tech gadgets or cinematic escapes. Just a dagger, a splash of blood, and a desperate sprint to avoid capture. Survival hinged on luck as much as skill. And the mental strain, brutal. Every rustle in the dark could be an enemy. Every friend, a potential backstabber. Trust was a luxury you couldn't afford, and paranoia was your constant companion. The weight of taking lives, whether for coin or coercion, gnawed at you, assuming you had a conscience left to gnaw. This wasn't a life of swagger and bravado. It was a tightrope walk over a pit of despair. Most assassins didn't retire to a quiet cottage by the sea. They either died young or faded into obscurity, their minds as scarred as their hands. Let's pause for a second. Imagine you're one of these assassins crouched in a damp alley, the stench of medieval streets thick in your nose. Your target's upstairs, laughing with their guards, oblivious to your presence. Your heart's pounding your palms, sweaty around the hilt of your blade. This isn't Funit's terrifying. One slip, one creaky floorboard, and you're done. That's the reality we're talking about here, not some epic tale of heroism, another myth worth shattering the idea that assassins were lone wolves, answering to no one but their own code. Sure, that sounds cool, but it's nonsense. Most medieval assassins were tangled up in networks guilds, secret orders, or the schemes of power-hungry nobles. You weren't a free agent picking your jobs. You were a pawn in someone else's chess game. Your life was expendable, your death just a minor inconvenience to the people pulling the strings. The Hashishin, for instance, didn't act on personal grudges. They followed orders from a hierarchy that cared more about politics than their survival. And what about the skills? You might think, okay, but they must have been impressive masters of stealth and combat. True assassins were skilled, often frighteningly so. Training started young, think, grueling years of learning to move, silently blend into crowds, and kill efficiently. You'd master disguises, maybe posing as a servant or a merchant, all while hiding a blade up your sleeve. But those skills didn't make you invincible. One wrong step, one suspicious glance, and your training meant nothing. Unlike video game heroes, like Ezio Auditore, you didn't get a do-over. Failure meant torture execution or a slow death in some forgotten cell. Oh, and the pay don't expect a fortune. The idea of assassins raking in piles of gold is another fairy tale. Most got a pittance enough to scrape by if they were lucky. The real wealth stayed with the lords and kings who hired them. You were the hired help, not the mastermind, and like any grunt, you were disposable. Your reward wasn't riches or fame. It was the slim chance of living to see another job. Let's shift gears for a moment. Ever heard of the 1170 murder of Thomas Becket Fornights, acting on King Henry II's alleged orders hacked the Archbishop to death in Canterbury Cathedral? Not exactly subtle, right? These weren't trained assassins in the classic sense, but it shows how eliminating a problem in medieval times was often less about finesse and more about raw violence. Professional assassins might have aimed for quieter kills poison in a goblet, a stab in an alley, but the end game was the same messy, risky, and far from glamorous. So why do we keep romanticizing them? Maybe it's the thrill of danger, the fantasy of outsmarting the world from the shadows. Or maybe it's because we love a good story. And tragic pawn in a brutal game doesn't sell as well as heroic rogue. But the truth is, being a medieval assassin was a grind dangerous, unglamorous, and short-lived. You weren't a legend. You were a means to an end. Next time you're tempted to envy that cloaked figure on the screen, think twice. The reality was a life of fear, blood, and betrayal, not a tale of glory. Stick to your day job. It's a lot less likely to get you stabbed in the back. You stand at the edge of a narrow path, the wind whipping your cloak around you. Below the valley stretches out a patchwork of fields and forests, peaceful and oblivious to the life you're about to choose. But your destination lies ahead, up the steep slope of the mountain. The fortress of the assassins looms above its stone walls, blending into the rock face like it's been carved from the earth itself. You've heard the stories, grueling training, deadly tests, the whispers of those who never came back down. Still, you've made your choice. You take a deep breath, the cold air stinging your lungs, and begin the climb. The path is a beast slippery, with loose gravel steep enough to make your calves ache within minutes. By the time you reach the gates, your hands are scraped from steadying yourself against jagged rocks, and your breath comes in ragged gasps. A guard, his face half hidden by a hood, gives you a curt nod and steps aside. Inside, the courtyard is alive with motion, recruits sparring with wooden blades, others hauling sacks of grain, a few sitting cross-legged in eerie silence. A tall man with a scarred face strides toward you. "Welcome," he says, his voice low and gravelly. "I am Master Thorn. Your training begins now." Day after day, you push your body beyond what you thought possible. You run up the mountain until your legs scream, then down again, faster, each time the wind rushing past your ears. You lift stones so heavy they make your arms tremble, feeling your muscles tear and knit themselves back stronger. You climb sheer cliffs, fingertips bleeding as you grip tiny ledges, the drop below a silent threat. Each night, you collapse onto a straw mat that smells faintly of mildew, too exhausted to dream. But bit by bit you change. Your breath steadies your steps, grow sure. You're becoming something new, something deadly. It's like medieval CrossFit, but with worse snacks and a higher chance of dying. Speaking of snacks, the food here is its own kind of torture. Gruel that looks like it's been sitting out since last harvest, stale bread that crumbles like ancient parchment, and if you're lucky, a hunk of cheese that's more rind than reward. You joke with the other recruits that the real test isn't the training, it's surviving the meals without staging a revolt. Still, you choke it down because every bite fuels the transformation. Next comes stealth training, and it's a whole different beast. In the dead of night, you creep through the forest surrounding the fortress, every sense on edge. The instructors have set trap strip wires that spill pebbles if you're careless, alerting them to your every misstep. You learn to move like a shadow, placing each foot with agonizing care, avoiding dry leaves and snapping twigs. The air smells of pine and damp earth, and your heart thuds as you pass, within inches of a guard, his eyes scanning the darkness. When you finally snag the token, a small carved stone, and tuck it into your pocket, you let out a silent breath of triumph. But this is just the warm-up. It's not all grim seriousness, though. Sometimes it's downright ridiculous, like the time you tried sneaking past the cook's tent and ended up with a face full of flour turns. Out the cook guards his supplies like a dragon hoarding gold. You spent the rest of the day looking like a ghost, much to the delight of your fellow recruits. Stealth level, expert dignity level 0. Combat skills come fast and brutal. You square off against Alaric, a wiry recruit with quick hands. He's fast, but you're learning. He lunges with a dagger, and you sidestep, grabbing his wrist and twisting until he drops it with a grunt. You kick the blade away, pressing your own knife to his throat. Yield, you say, voice steady, despite the adrenaline pumping through you. He nods, a flicker of respect in his eyes. Master Thorn claps you on the back. Good, but next time faster. Your arms are bruised, your knuckles sore, but there's a strange satisfaction in feeling your skills sharpen like a blade on a whetstone. The mainstream tales tell us groups like the Hashashin, those infamous medieval killers, put their recruits through regimens like this, endless drills to forge body and mind into perfect weapons. It's not hard to believe when you're living it, every ache a testament to their legacy. Psychological prep is where things get murky. You sit cross-legged in a dim chamber, the air thick with the scent of burning herbs. Master Thorn's voice drones, guiding you to empty your mind of fear of doubt. You are a weapon, he says. Weapons do not feel. You focus on your breathing, slow and deep, trying to bury the part of you that flinches at the thought of taking a life. But in the quiet of night alone, on that lumpy mat, you wonder, can you really kill without a shred of remorse? He says you must, or you'll hesitate when it matters most. so you shove the doubts down deeper each time. Then there's the specialized stuff, the tricks of the trade. You sit at a scarred wooden table, vials and herbs spread before you. The poison master, an old woman with hands like twisted roots, shows you how to grind nightshade into a fine powder. A pinch in a goblet, she rasps, and your target sleeps forever. You mix concoctions, learning which kill quick and which draw out the end. You test them on rats, watching their tiny bodies twitch, and still a knot of fascination and unease in your gut. The bitter tang of the herbs lingers on your tongue, a constant reminder of what you're training for. And it's not just plants. The assassins keep a menagerie falcons trained to carry messages dogs that bark to distract guards. Even a few snakes for those extra special jobs. You spend hours with them learning their quirks, how to handle them without a bite or a scratch. It's weirdly endearing, like having the world's deadliest pets until you remember what they're for. The instructors are a cast of characters straight out of a grim fairy tale. Old Grim never cracks a smile, piling on extra laps like it's his life's joy. Sly Fox. The disguise master pops up when you least expect it, testing your alertness with a smirk. You swear he's got eyes in the back of his head. They're tough as nails, but you can feel it. They're shaping you into something formidable, one grueling day at a time. Historians still bicker over how much of this is real. Did the Hashashin leap from cliffs to prove their loyalty as some wild tales claim, or is it all exaggerated to spook their enemies? The truth's lost in the mists of time, but the legends stick painting these killers as half myth, half nightmare. Finally, the big moment arrives, your last test. Master Thorn hands you a scroll, the parchment crackling as you unroll it. A name stares back at you, a minor noble who's crossed the wrong person. You've got 1 week to plan and pull it off. Every lesson, every bruise, every sleepless night has led here. Your stomach churns with excitement and dread, a cocktail you're still getting used to. This is your shot to prove yourself, your first real taste of the assassin's life. You wonder if you're ready, but there's no turning back now. The mountain looms behind you, silent and unyielding as you step into the shadows. The torchlight flickers against the cold stone walls of a castle corridor, casting jagged shadows that dance like specters. It's the kind of night where the wind howls secrets through the arrow slits, and every creak feels like a warning. You're cloaked in black, a dagger tucked close, your breath shallow as you edge toward the Lord's chamber. Hez asleep, oblivious, his chest rising and falling under a fur-lined blanket. One quick strike and the balance of power shifts. His allies scramble, his enemies rejoice. But just as you raise the blade, a floorboard groans beneath you. A guard's shout pierces the silence. Halt, your heart lurches, and suddenly you're bolting through the halls, the clatter of armor hot on your heels. You leap from a window, disappearing into the misty night, leaving chaos in your wake. This, my friends, is the medieval assassins, life-high stakes, higher risks, and a paycheck that's only good if you survive. Why were assassinations such a hot ticket in medieval times? Simple power was a slippery thing, and keeping it meant playing dirty. Kings, nobles, and even the odd bishop sat atop a shaky pyramid of loyalty and land. But there were always climbers, rivals, cousins, or ambitious underlings itching to knock them off. Open warfare was an option, sure, but it was loud, expensive, and could backfire spectacularly. A well-timed assassination. That was a shortcut. One dead rival, no army needed, and if you played it right, no one even knew it was you. It was the medieval equivalent of a surgical strike, quiet, precise, and oh so effective. But it wasn't just about convenience. Assassinations doubled as a megaphone for power. Killing someone important wasn't just removing a piece from the board, it was shouting to everyone else, "I'm in charge, and am not afraid to get messy." Take the Hashashin, that shadowy crew from the Middle East. These guys turned murder into a political art form, striking fear into crusader kings and sultans alike. Their leader, the so-called Old Man of the Mountain, didn't need a massive castle or a legion of knights, just a handful of fanatical killers who could slip past guards like ghosts. Fun fact, some say they smoked hashish to psych themselves up, though that might just be juicy gossip from terrified travelers. Either way, their legend alone was enough to make rulers sleep with one eye open. Let's zoom in on a real hit, the murder of Thomas Becket in 1170. Picture Canterbury Cathedral, all somber stone and stained glass, when four knights burst in swords gleaming. Becket the Archbishop had been locking horns with King Henry II over who really ran the show church or crown. Henry fed up, supposedly grumbled, "Will no one rid me of this meddlesome priest?" The knights took it as a royal wink and slashed Becket down right there at the altar. Blood on holy ground, talk about a statement. Henry swore he didn't mean it, but the damage was done. Becket became a martyr, and Henry got a political headache that lasted years. Assassination win or PR disaster? You decide. Then there's Conrad of Montferrat, a crusader king, who met his end in 1192. Hez strolling through Tyre, probably feeling pretty smug, when two Hashashin agents stab him in broad daylight. Word on the street was Richard the Lionheart ordered the hit to clear his own path to glory. True or not, Conrad's death sent shockwaves through the Holy Land, proving once again that a single blade could rewrite the map faster than a siege. These weren't random acts of violence. They were calculated power plays, chess moves with a body count. How'd they do it? Poison was the VIP of assassination methods, subtle, sneaky, and perfect for a world without CSI. Medieval nobles were paranoid about it, and for good reason. A sprinkle of something nasty in your wine and your Janino witnesses no fuss. They'd hire food tasters use silver spoons that supposedly turned black near poison spoiler they didn't, and even clutch gemstones rumored to neutralize toxins. Ever hear of aqua tofana? This slow killer could take days to finish you off, leaving everyone scratching their heads about what went wrong. Pair that with exotic stuff like snake venom or deadly nightshade, and you've got a medieval mixology of doom. Daggers were the backup plan, intimate, messy but reliable. Crossbows offered distance if you were fancy, and strangling. Well, that was for the truly committed. The trick was making it look accidental, or framing some poor sap. Because in this game, it wasn't enough to kill, you had to spin the story afterward. A good assassin didn't just take a life. They shaped the fallout. Imagine being a medieval bigwig for a sec. You're dripping in furs, gold rings on every finger, but you're a nervous wreck. Every goblet could be laced, every shadow a threat. You've got guards, sure, but can you trust them? You switch beds nightly, double-check your locks, maybe even send your own killers after anyone who looks at you funny. That's the dark side of assassination culture. It breeds paranoia. The fear of a blade in the night could unravel a ruler faster than any army. It's psychological warfare, medieval styleless about the body count, and more about the mind games. And the kicker, everyone knew it was wrong. Chivalry was the buzzword honor duels, all that noble jazz, stabbing someone in their sleep, total faux pas. Yet behind the tapestries and tournaments, it happened constantly. Why? Because survival trumped etiquette. The Borgias, a bit later, but too good to skip, turned poisoning into a family hobby. They'd smile at you over dinner, slip something in your soup, and toast your sudden illness the next day. Dishonest, sure. Effective, you bet. So why were assassinations the medieval power tool of choice? They were fast, they were quiet, and they got results. In a world of clashing swords and crumbling alliances, a single death could topple dynasties or secure a crown. But it came with baggage fear, mistrust, and a society where no one slept easy. Next time you're binging a medieval saga, watch for that cloaked figure in the corner. They're not just a plot twist, they're the heartbeat of power, pumping through a world where the throne was only as safe as the shadows around it. You're perched in the rafters of a drafty hall, the flicker of torchlight below, casting long shadows. Your hand brushes the hilt of a dagger's maul, unassuming but wickedly sharp. This is no broadsword for a battlefield. It's a stiletto, a slender blade built for precision. Its needle-like point can slip through the gaps in chainmail or pierce a doublet with barely a whisper. You've seen it done, a quick thrust under the arm, a twist, and your target slumps without a sound. Tucked beside it is a misericord, the mercy dagger, long and thin, perfect for finishing a jobor, silencing a guard who's seen too much. These blades don't gleam with glory. They're matte blackened with soot or oil to avoid catching the light. In your world, visibility is the enemy. But not every kill needs a blade. You reach into a hidden pouch and pull out a vial, its contents glinting faintly in the dark. Poison is your silent partner, a weapon that strikes without ever raising an alarm. Medieval assassins had a grim apothecary at their disposal, arsenic for a lingering death belladonna, to still the breath, or wolfsbane to send a heart racing into oblivion. You've got a favorite, a slow brew of hemlock, subtle enough to mask in a goblet of spiced wine. Delivery's the trick, a drop on a pastry, a dart from a blowgun, or even a smear on a quill for a scribe who's too curious. It's patient work, letting the poison do its dance, while you're miles away, sipping ale in some tavern alibi intact. Now, let's talk gadgets, the unsung heroes of your trade. You're no knight crashing through gates, you're a ghost, and ghosts need clever tools. Take the lockpicks, a handful of bent wires and bone slivers stashed in a hollowed-out heel. They're rough, nothing like the polished sets of later centuries, but you've got the touch. A few twists, a soft click, and you're through a door meant to keep you out. Then there's the rope, thin, strong with a grappling hook, no bigger than your fist. It's your ladder to rooftops or your lifeline out of a tower window. Last night, you scaled a keep's wall with it, the wind tugging at your cloak as you hauled yourself up silent as a spider. Disguises are your armor. Tonight you're a servant, your face smudged with ash, a tray of bread hiding the tools of your trade. Tomorrow, you might be a pilgrim staff in hand, except that staff's hollow with a blade inside. It's all about blending in, becoming invisible in plain sight. You've even got a pouch of chalk and charcoal to alter your features, turning a sharp jaw into a soft one, a killer into a nobody. In a world of torchlight and suspicion, it's enough to get you close. Surprise is your currency, and you spend it wisely. You've got a pouch of black powder crude, unstable but effective. A spark in the courtyard, a loud bang, and suddenly the guards are scrambling, leaving your path clear. It's not magic. It's chemistry borrowed from alchemists who'd rather not know how you use it. Or maybe you've rigged a distraction simpler. Still a trained bird, loose to flap and squawk, drawing eyes away from your shadow. Low-tech, sure, but it works. And when you're balancing on a knife's edge, results beat flare every time. Smoke bombs are your ace. A clay pot, a mix of sulfur and pitch, A quick fuse toss it, and the room fills with choking haze. It's your cover to strike or flee, turning chaos into opportunity. You've used it before a guard coughing a noble shouting, and you're out the window before anyone knows what hit them. The smell's awful, like a dragon's breath, but you're not sticking around to complain. And if things go sideways, there's always the backup. A garrote wire in your sleeve, a hidden blade in your belt, a ring with a poison compartment. You're a one-person armory, every inch of you a threat. Let's get quirky for a moment, because even assassins had their oddities. Ever hear of the blowgun? A reed tube, a dart tipped with nightshade fuft, and your target's down clutching their neck in confusion. It's not common, but you've met a Sicilian who swears by it, claims it's quieter than a prayer. Or take the poison, maiden trick gloves, laced with toxin, a handshake that kills by dawn. Half myth, half nightmare, but you've seen stranger things work. And then there's your pet rat, nibbling a crumb you've dosed with your latest brew. If he's still scampering by morning, you know it's safe to use. Practical. Maybe not. Entertaining? Definitely. History's full of these quirks. Some assassins rigged books with tiny charges open the page and bang your confetti. Scholars debate if it's true, but you've seen enough weirdness to believe it. Others used hollow coins to smuggle poison, or messages flipping them to a mark who'd never suspect. It's the little touches that make the job art, not just murder. Like the teapot you once saw in a Venetian's lair. 2 spouts, one for tea, one for death. Pour with a smile and let fate decide. Picture it now, you're on the move. The castle looms, its walls slick with rain. Your stilettos ready your poisons, prepped your lockpicks, jingle softly. You've scouted the guards lazy tonight, huddled by a fire. A toss of black powder into the stables, a muffled boom, and they're off shouting about spooked horses. You're in picking the lock to the Lord's chamber, the door swinging open with a sigh. Hez there snoring a cup of wine half drunk. You hesitate a dagger, or poison wins. A drop astir, and you're back into the night smoke bomb bursting behind you as you vanish. It's not pretty, but it's yours. These tools, blades, poisons, gadgets aren't just gear. They're your wits made metal and venom. Every lockpick's a puzzle solved, every dart a risk taken. Medieval assassins didn't have tech. They had cunning, and that's what kept them alive. So next time you hear a tale of a shadow slipping through history, know this: behind every legend was a toolkit, silent and deadly, pieced together from a world that never saw them coming. You're standing in a bustling medieval marketplace, the air thick with the scent of roasting meat, fresh bread, and the occasional whiff of something less pleasant, probably the stables nearby. Merchants hawk their wares. Children dart between stalls, and a bard strums a lute, his voice carrying over the crowd. But you're not here for the sights or sounds. You're here to disappear. In your hand is a small pouch of charcoal and chalk tools as vital as any blade. You duck behind a cart laden with apples, your fingers working quickly to smudge your cheeks, darken your brows, and add a few lines that age your face by a decade. A quick glance in a polished copper mirror confirms it. The young assassin is gone, replaced by a weathered traveler, unremarkable and forgettable. You slip a patched cloak over your shoulders, hunch slightly, and step back into the throng. No one spares you a second glance. You're invisible, a ghost in the crowd. This is the art of disguise, the assassin's first line of defense. In a world where a single suspicious look could mean capture, blending in was survival. Medieval assassins weren't just killers. They were chameleons, masters of transformation. They could be a servant one day, a pilgrim the next, or even a noble if the job demanded it. The key was to become someone else entirely, to shed your identity like a snake sheds its skin. But it wasn't just about costumes and makeup. Disguise was a mental game, a test of nerve and observation. You had to think like your alias, move like them, even smell like them if necessary. A good assassin could mimic the limp of a beggar, the swagger of a soldier, or the pious gait of a monk. It was acting, but with life or death stakes. One wrong move, a slip in accent, a misplaced gesture, and the whole charade could unravel. Take the story of William de la Marck, the Boer of the Ardennes. This 15th century warlord was known for his brutality, but also for his cunning. Legend has it, he once infiltrated a rival's castle disguised as a monk. His wild beard shaved his rough hands, hidden in prayer. He gained the trust of the Lord, only to slit his throat during confession. True or not, it's a tale that captures the essence of the assassins, craft deception as a weapon sharper than any blade. Picture this, your William standing before the castle gates, your heart thudding beneath the coarse monk's robe. The guards eye you, but your bowed head and murmured blessings disarm them. Inside, the Lord's voice is warm, trusting, until the cold steel meets his throat. That's the power of disguise. It turns trust into a trap. Now, let's talk tools. The assassin's kit was a marvel of ingenuity. False beards made from horsehair wigs, woven from human or animal fibers, and prosthetics crafted from wax or leather could alter one's appearance dramatically. Some even used early forms of makeup kohl to darken the eyes, ochre to change skin tone, or crushed berries to redden the lips. It wasn't glamorous, more like a medieval version of a Halloween costume, but it worked. Clothing was crucial. An assassin might carry a bundle of disguises, a servant's tunic, a merchant's robe, a peasant's smock. Each piece was chosen for its ability to blend into specific settings. A cloak with a deep hood could obscure the face, while a wide-brimmed hat could cast shadows over the eyes. Accessories like walking sticks or baskets could complete the look, making the assassin just another face in the crowd. Here's a quirky tidbit: some assassins used reversible clothing. A cloak that was brown on one side and green on the other could be flipped in an instant, changing the wearer's appearance mid-chase. It's like something out of a spy movie, but medieval style. Imagine fleeing down an alley, ducking behind a wall, and emerging as a different person. It's not foolproof, but in a pinch, it could buy precious seconds. Ever tried flipping a jacket inside out while running from a pack of angry dogs? That's the medieval assassins. Life, except the dogs were armed with swords and a thirst for vengeance. Reversible cloaks weren't just clever. They were a lifeline. Disguise wasn't just for the approach. It was also for the escape. After a hit, an assassin needed to vanish and fast. That's where quick changes came in. A wig snatched off a cloak, discarded, and suddenly the killer was gone, replaced by a harmless bystander. Some even used decoy-shirring lookalikes to draw pursuers away. It was a game of smoke and mirrors played in the narrow streets and dark forests of medieval Europe. But not all disguises were physical. Assassins also relied on social camouflage. They learned the art of conversation, picking up local dialects, slang, and customs. They could spin tales of pilgrimage or trade deflecting suspicion with a well-placed lie. It was about becoming a character so completely that even you almost believed it. Imagine chatting with a gruff innkeeper, your accent matching his, your story of a long pilgrimage smoothing his scowl into a nod. You're not just hiding your face, you're hiding your soul. That's the assassin's edge, a mask that's more than skin deep. Let's consider a real example, the assassination of Duke John the Fearless in 1419. The plotters loyal to the French crown needed to get close to the Duke, who was notoriously paranoid. They chose a meeting on a bridge neutral ground, but even there, John was wary. One of the conspirators, Tanneguy du Chastel, approached under the guise of negotiation. He was known to the Duke, trusted even. But as they spoke, another man disguised as a servant slipped behind and struck the fatal blow. The disguise wasn't elaborate, just a simple servant's attire, but it was enough to lower the Duke's guard. In the chaos that followed, the assassins melted away, their identities obscured by the crowd. This incident sparked debates among historians. Was the servant an assassin in disguise, or just a pawn in a larger game? Some argue it was a spontaneous act, others that it was meticulously planned. The truth is murky, lost to time, but it underscores the power of disguise in medieval intrigue. Think of the bridge that day, a tense handshake, the Duke's eyes darting the servant's quiet steps. One moment of distraction and history shifts. Disguise didn't just kill, Jonnet rewrote the power map of France. Now let's dive deeper with another tale, the shadowy figure of Ezio Auditore da Firenze. Yes, he's fictional from the Assassin's Creed series, but his inspiration pulls from real medieval traditions. Ezio's hooded cloak and ability to blend into crowds echo the tactics of historical assassins. In one scene, he dons a doctor's robes to infiltrate a guarded villa, his calm demeanor and borrowed tools letting him slip past scrutiny. It's dramatized, sure, but it mirrors the real ingenuity of those who walk the line between myth and reality. Back in the real world, consider the Hashashin, the original assassins from the Middle East. These 11th century killers were said to disguise themselves as merchants or holy men to approach crusader targets. One account claims a Hashashin posed as a leper, his face wrapped in bandages to get near a fortress gate. The guards, repulsed, yet respectful, waved him through only to find a dagger in their commander's back later that night. Disguise wasn't just practical, it was theatrical. So why did disguises work so well? Part of it was the medieval mindset. People were superstitious, quick to believe in curses or divine retribution. A stranger in town might be a pilgrim or a demon, depending on the tale. Assassins played on these fears, sometimes adopting the guise of holy men or lepers figures, both revered and avoided. It was psychological warfare, using society's own biases against it. Moreover, medieval society was stratified. People knew their place, and questioning someone's identity wasn't always polite or safe. A noble in disguise could command respect, a servant could be ignored. Assassins exploited these social norms, slipping through the cracks of a rigid hierarchy. Superstition and status, two sides of the same coin. An assassin in a monk's robe could bless you or curse you, and who dare ask which that ambiguity was their shield? But let's not romanticize it. Disguise was hard work. It required constant vigilance, a keen eye for detail, and the ability to improvise. One slip, a forgotten accent, a misplaced emblem, and the game was up. And if caught, the punishment was brutal. Torture, execution, or worse, awaited those who failed. It was a high-stakes game, played in the shadows of castles and cathedrals. Yet for all its risks, disguise was indispensable. It was the assassin's cloak of invisibility, their ticket to the inner sanctum. Without it, they were just another thug with a knife. With it, they were a whisper, a rumor, a legend. The next time you're in a crowd, look around. That hunched old man with the cane, that merchant with the loud laugh. Could they be more than they seem? In the medieval world, you'd never know until the blade flashed. As you stand in that marketplace, now a weathered traveler, you feel a strange sense of power. You're not just hiding, you're controlling how the world sees you. It's a heady feeling, but also a lonely one. In this guise, you're untouchable, but also unseen. You're a ghost passing through lives without leaving a trace. And that perhaps is the true art of the assassin, to be everywhere and nowhere, to strike and vanish, leaving only questions in your wake. The night is thick with fog, the kind that clings to your cloak and muffles every sound. You're crouched behind a tapestry in the Lord's chamber, heart pounding like a war drum. The plan was simple: slip and strike, slip out. But something's off. The Lord stirs his eyes, snapping open just as you raise your dagger. A shout splits the silence, and suddenly the room floods with guards. You're fast, but they're faster. A gauntleted hand clamps around your wrist, twisting until the blade clatters to the floor. You're dragged into the torchlight, the Lord's furious gaze boring into you. Take this wretch to the dungeon, he snarls. And just like that, your mission and maybe your life is over. Failure wasn't just a stumble for a medieval assassin. It was a plunge into a nightmare. The stakes were sky high, and missing your mark didn't mean a stern talking to or a second chance. It meant capture, torture, and a death so gruesome it'd make a dragon wince. This wasn't a game of hide-and-seek gone wrong. This was a world where failure painted a target on your back, and the consequences were as creative as they were cruel. So tuck yourself in tight, because we're about to explore what happened when an assassin's luck ran dry, the immediate fallout. Caught in the act. Picture this: you've botched the job, and now you're in chains, the cold stone of a dungeon floor biting into your knees. If you were caught red-handed, there was no talking your way out. Medieval justice didn't mess around with assassin scene. As the sneakiest of villains, you were less a person and more a problem to be solved, usually with sharp objects and loud crowds. A quick cell toss was the best-case scenario, but don't get comfy. That cell was just a waiting room for something far worse. Torture was the opening act, and medieval torturers were nothing if not inventive. The rack was a classic. You'd be strapped down, and they'd turn the crank, stretching you until your bones groaned and your secrets spilled out. Then there were the thumb screws, little vices that turned your fingers into a confessional booth. These weren't just about punishment. They were a message to every other shadow lurker out there: mess up, and we'll make you sing. And here's a mainstream fact: to chew on torture devices like the rack were so common that some castles had them as permanent fixtures, like medieval gym equipment gone horribly wrong. Execution followed, and oh, what a show it could be. Beheading was for the VIPs, swift and dignified, but you'd likely get the slow treatment. Hanging meant dangling until your air ran out the crowd, placing bets on how long you'd twitch. Or maybe they'd go for drawn and quartered tied to horses, torn apart your bits, paraded around town. And if you really ticked someone off, boiling in oil was on the table. It's not a bedtime snack you'd want to imagine, trust me. Ever wonder how they kept the mood light in such dark times? Well, they didn't, but here's a quirky tidbit to break the tension. Some claim executioners used a device called the Pear of Anguish, a metal gadget shaped like a fruit that expanded inside. Well, let's just say sensitive spots. Nasty, right? But here's the kicker: scholars still argue if it was real or just a medieval urban legend cooked up to scare folks straight. Either way, the idea alone probably made more than one assassin double-check their escape plan. The long-game betrayal and broken trust. Let's say you slipped away, dagger still, in hand mission, unfulfilled. You might think you're in the clear, but failure had a long reach. Your employers, those shadowy puppet masters pulling the strings, didn't take kindly to flops. Assassins were tools, and a dull tool got tossed aside or sharpened by someone else's blade. If you botched a job, you became a liability, a loose tongue waiting to wag. Next thing you know, you're dodging your own kind hired to tie up the loose end that is you. Take the Hashishin, those fierce killers from the mountains of Persia. They were loyal to a fault, but failure wasn't in their handbook. If one got nabbed, the order might cut them loose, leaving them to face the enemy's wrath solo. Some stories say they'd pop a poison pill hidden in a ring or tooth rather, then spill the beans. Whether that's true or just a cool tale, it shows the razor's edge they walked. No one wanted a failed Hashishin around. They were too dangerous to keep, too risky to free. And then there's the ripple effect. A failed hit could ruin your repward travels fast in the underworld. Suddenly no one's hiring you, and every tavern door slams shut. You're a ghost, but not the cool kind, just a shadow no one trusts. That's the long-term cost, not just your life, but your whole existence erased one way or another. History's hard lessons when plans go awry. Let's peek at some real flops to see how this played out. In 1272, King Edward I of England faced a close call during the Crusades. A group of assassins supposedly sent by the Sultan of Egypt snuck into his tent, one even nicking him with a poisoned blade. Edward lived, thanks to quick thinking, and maybe a handy antidote, but the attackers, not so lucky. Those caught were grilled with hot irons, their screams a warm-up for the public executions that followed. Their failure didn't just end them, it made Edward a legend, proving kings don't go down easy. Fast forward to 1478 Florence. The Pazzi family hatched a plot to kill Lorenzo de' Medici and his brother Giuliano during Easter Mass. Knives flashed, Giuliano fell, but Lorenzo dodged the worst of it. The aftermath was a bloodbath. Conspirators were hunted hanged from palace windows or ripped apart by a furious mob. One guy, Bernardo Baroncelli, bolted all the way to Constantinople, only to be dragged back and strung up. Failure here didn't just cost lives. It torched a whole family's name, leaving them as cautionary tales in the history books. The mind's heavy load. Now imagine living with all this hanging over you. Every creak of a floorboard, every flicker of a shadow your nerves would be a tangle of knots. The fear of failure wasn't just about the mission. It was about what came after. You'd replay every step in your head, wondering where it went wrong, if that guard's squint meant he'd seen you. Paranoia was your bunkmate, whispering doubts until you couldn't tell friend from foe. That constant dread must have weighed a ton. Some assassins probably buckled hands, trembling at the critical moment, or drowning their fears in ale or opium. Others turned into lone wolves, trusting no one their lives, a string of fake names and fleeting glances. Intimacy, a luxury, friendship, a trap. You were alone with your thoughts, and those thoughts were loud, shouting about every near miss, every what if. Here's a debate scholars love to chew on. Were these assassins cold-blooded pros, or just desperate souls pushed to the edge? Some say they were masterminds, thriving on the thrill. Others argue they were pawns, broken by the grind of fear and failure. What do you think? Heroes of the dark, or victims of their own game? Why risk it all? So why sign up for this gig? For some, it was the only way out. Poverty or a shady past left no other doors open. Others chased the rush, the power to nudge history with a flick of a wrist. And a few believed they were on a noble quest, their blade a tool for justice or faith. But no matter the why, failure loomed like a storm cloud ready to crash down with lightning and fury. Next time you're snuggled under the covers, spare a thought for those medieval assassins. Their world was a tightrope over a pit of spikes, every move a roll of the dice. Success might have brought glory, but failure, that was a tale of terror told in blood and shadow. Sweet dreams, little listener stick to dragons and knights. At least their stories might end with a cheer. In the medieval world, power was a slippery thing often grasped with a gauntleted fist or a poisoned chalice. Kings and nobles lived in a constant dance of alliances and betrayals where today's friend could be tomorrow's foe. When whispers and diplomacy failed, the solution was simple: remove the problem permanently. Assassination was the dark art of the age, a swift and silent way to redraw the lines of power. Tonight we journey back to three infamous tales of murder that shocked the medieval world, each a testament to the brutal reality that in the quest for power, the end often justified the means. So settle in and let's step into the shadows of history. The assassination of Sancho II of Castile, 1072. Our first tale unfolds in the dusty plains of Spain in 1072. King Sancho II of Castile, a warrior king with a thirst for conquest, is laying siege to the city of Zamora. The sun beats down on his army, the air thick with the clang of armor and the shouts of soldiers. Sancho, his face streaked with sweat and dirt, paces in his tent maps, and plans spread before him. His sister Urraca holds Zamora, and she's not about to hand it over without a fight. The siege drags on, and Sancho grows restless, dreaming of a united Castile under his iron rule. Enter Velid Adolfo, a nobleman with a glint in his eye and a secret up his sleeve. He approaches Sancho's camp, claiming he has a plan to breach Zamora's walls. "Meet me alone," he says, and Sancho, eager to end the stalemate, agrees. They step outside the camp, the king's guards watching from a distance, oblivious to the trap unfolding. As they talk, Velid suddenly draws a dagger and plunges it into Sancho's heart. The king collapses, blood staining the parched earth, and Velid flees back to Zamora, where Urraca and likely their brother Alfonso wait. With Sancho gone, Alfonso seizes the throne, uniting Castile and Leon under his rule. The assassination shifts the balance of power in Spain, inspiring ballads and legends that echo through the centuries. Here's a quirky tidbit. The tale grew so famous that it wormed its way into the epic poem El Cantar de Mio Cid, where the hero Cid gets tangled up in the scandal medieval gossip at its finest. It's a stark reminder that even in the 11th century, a good story could outlive the truth. The assassination of Thomas Becket, 1170. Now let's leap forward to England in 1170, where the air buzzes with tension between King Henry II and his former friend Archbishop Thomas Becket. These two were once thick as thieves, but when Becket became Archbishop of Canterbury, he took his job a tad too seriously, locking horns with Henry over who got to boss around the church. Henry wanted control. Becket wanted independence. Their friendship soured faster than milk left out in the summer sun. One fateful day, Henry, fed up, reportedly grumbled, "Will no one rid me of this turbulent priest?" 4 knights overheard, or perhaps misheard, and decided to take matters into their own hands. On December 29th, they stormed into Canterbury Cathedral. The place is dimly lit, the scent of incense heavy in the air. Becket kneels in prayer, his robes pooling around him when the doors crash open. "Where is the traitor?" one knight bellows. Becket rises calm as a saint. Here I am, no traitor, but a priest of God. Swords flash, and in a shocking act of violence, they cut him down at the altar, blood pooling on the sacred stone. The murder sends shock waves across Europe. Becket becomes a martyr overnight, and Henry stuck doing public penance, whipped by monks no less, to save face. Pilgrims flock to Canterbury, claiming Becket's blood works miracles. Some even bottle it up as holy relics. Here's the big debate: did Henry mean for Becket to die? Or was it just a royal tantrum gone wrong? Scholars still bicker over it: rage or a sly order. Either way, those nights gave Henry a PR nightmare no medieval spin doctor could fix: the assassination of Conrad of Montferrat, 1192. Our final tale whisks us to the Holy Land during the Third Crusade, where it's 1192, and the city of Tyre hums with intrigue. Conrad of Montferrat, a cunning noble with a knack for power plays, has just been elected king of Jerusalem. This doesn't sit well with his rival, Guy de Lusignan, or maybe even King Richard the Lionheart of England. On April 28th, Conrad rides through Tyre's bustling streets, the sea breeze carrying salt, and the chatter of merchants. He's proud, plotting his next move, when two men dressed as monks approach, heads bowed. They get close, offer a polite nod, then out come the daggers. In a flash, they stab Conrad repeatedly, and he crumples to the cobblestones, his royal ambitions bleeding out with him. The assassins are nabbed, and under torture, they confess to being Hashashin agents of the mysterious old man of the mountain. But whispers fly. Was it Richard, clearing a rival, or Saladin, the Muslim leader, nipping a threat in the bud? The truth's a tangled mess lost to history's shadows. Conrad's death throws the Crusader states into chaos, shifting the Third Crusade's trajectory. Fun fact: the Hashashin were the real deal, a sect famous for sneaky political hits. Their name ties to hashish, with tales they drugged up for paradise visions, probably exaggerated, but it makes for a wild story. These weren't your friendly neighborhood monks. They'd sooner offer a blade than a blessing. These three tales, Sancho the Saint, Thomas Becket, and Conrad of Montferrat, paint a vivid picture of medieval power struggles. Each assassination was a pivot point, toppling plans and rewriting fates. They show us a world where loyalty was fragile, and a well-placed dagger could change everything. As you drift off, ponder this: in the Game of Thrones, the pen might be mighty, but sometimes it's the blade that pens the final line. Sleep. Tight watch out for shadowy monks. You're slipping through the shadows of a medieval castle, heart pounding every creak of the floorboards, a potential death sentence. The air is thick with the scent of damp stone and burning torches, and your mission is clear: eliminate the target and vanish without a trace. It's the stuff of legends, cunning killers cloaked in mystery striking from the darkness. But how much of this romantic image holds up to the cold, hard facts? Let's dive into the murky world of medieval assassins and separate the myths from the messy, often unglamorous reality. Myth versus reality. What you think you know. Picture an assassin, hooded, silent, a master of disguise, with a dagger up their sleeve, right? That's the Hollywood version, and it's about as accurate as a bard's tale after too much mead. One of the biggest myths is that medieval assassins were all part of shadowy secret societies, like the infamous Hashashin of the Middle East. These guys, often called the original assassin's heir, painted as elite mystical killers who could take out a target without breaking a sweat. The reality: the Hashashin, a real group from the 11th to 13th centuries, were more about making a statement than slinking through the night. They'd often kill in public in front of witnesses to terrify their enemies into submission. Stealth was secondary to shock value. Then there's the idea that assassins were always slick professionals. Truth is, many were just hired muscle thugs with a grudge or a paycheck, not some ninja-trained elite. Their tools, less hidden blade and more whatever sharp and handy. Poison blunt objects or a good old-fashioned stabbing were common, and the execution was often sloppy. Success wasn't guaranteed either. Botched jobs were frequent, leaving the assassin to face a very public, very painful end. Historical examples, blood, sweat, and no tears. Let's ground this in some real stories. Take the murder of Thomas Becket in 1170. 4 knights, spurred by a possibly misinterpreted rant from King Henry II. Will no one rid me of this turbulent priest, stormed into Canterbury Cathedral and turned Becket into a pincushion. No cloaks, no subtlety, just a brutal hackfest in a sacred space. The fallout was chaotic. The knights were shunned. Henry did penance, and the whole affair became a PR disaster. Hardly the work of a master assassin. Or how about Charles the Good Count of Flanders in 1127? His own vassals ambushed him in a church, chopping him down during prayers. The killers didn't vanish into the night. They were hunted down, executed, and their bodies strung up as a warning. These weren't tales of cunning. They were bloody, impulsive power plays that often backfired spectacularly. Medieval assassinations were less about finesse and more about sending a message, usually with a side of gore. Quirky tidbit, deadly toys, and clever tricks. Now for something a bit juicier. Ever wonder what an assassin carried in their toolkit? Poisoned daggers were a favorite, nasty little blades, smeared with concoctions like wolf's bane, belladonna, or even snake venom. One nick in your target was a goner, though the assassin had to be careful not to scratch themselves in the process. Clumsy killers need not apply. Then there's the assassin's ring-a piece of jewelry with a hidden compartment for poison. Picture: separator. Imagine pouring a lethal dose into a rival's wine at a feast, all while smiling over your goblet. It's delightfully devious, like a medieval 007 gadget, but with more chainmail and fewer martinis. These oddball tools show that while the job was grim, assassins could get creative with their craft. Scholarly debate, power players, or pawns hearers, where the eggheads clash. Just how much sway did these killers have? Some historians argue that assassins, especially the Hashashin, were game changers. By targeting key figures, they could shift the balance of power, using fear as a weapon more potent than any blade. The Hashashins' hits on crusader leaders, for instance, rattled the opposition and cemented their fearsome rep. But others say, hold your horses. They argue these killers were overhyped pawns in bigger political chess games, not the grandmasters. For every headline-grabbing hit, there were countless flops assassins caught mid-stab, betrayed by allies, or just plain incompetent. The real power, they say, lay with the kings and nobles who paid for the dirty work, not the ones wielding the knife. It's a debate that keeps the ivory tower buzzing. And honestly, both sides have a point. Assassins were a mixed bag of menace and mess. Conclusion: no glamour, just guts. So what's the real scoop on medieval assassins? Forget the suave, cloaked figure gliding through the night. More often, it was a sweaty, desperate soul, hoping not to trip over their own feet or end up skewered themselves. The job was less about mystique and more about survival, with a retirement package that usually included a noose or an axe. Next time you're swooning over some assassin fantasy picture, this, instead, a grimy hired hand, fumbling with a rusty blade, praying the guards don't hear that creaky floorboard. It's not pretty. It's not polished, but it's the truth, and there's a raw, chaotic charm in that, isn't there? The alley reeks of rot and damp straw, the kind of stench that sticks to your cloak and lingers long after you've left. Your fingers tighten around the worn leather hilt of your dagger, its blade tucked beneath the folds of fabric waiting. The fog is thick tonight, a heavy shroud that muffles the distant clatter of hooves and the occasional shout from a tavern. Your breath comes in shallow bursts, each one a quiet battle against the panic clawing at your chest. Around the corner, your target ambles along, oblivious, his footsteps a steady rhythm on the cobblestones. You've tracked him for weeks, memorized his every move, the way he adjusts his hat, the route he takes home after too much ale. Now it's time. But as you shift your weight, ready to strike, a shiver of doubt ripples through you. Is this who I am? A shadow, a blade, a thief of lives. You shove the thought down deep where it can't distract you. Hesitation is death in this game. One slip, and the hunter becomes the hunted. This is the assassin's world, a tightrope walk between control and chaos, where every step is shadowed by danger and every choice carries a cost. But what happens to the mind of someone who lives this way, caught in a web of secrecy, violence, and moral quicksand? Let's peel back the layers and step into the killer's mind, where the true toll of this dark trade reveals itself. Paranoia is the assassin's constant companion, a shadow that never leaves. Trust is a luxury they can't afford. Every friend could be a foe, every glance a threat. They live with one eye over their shoulder, ears pricked for the faintest hint of betrayal. History gives us glimpses of this tension. The Hashashin, a medieval order of killers from the mountains of Persia, built their reputation on loyalty and fear. But even they weren't safe. Their fortress at Alamut was a maze of defenses guarded by spies and traps, yet it fell to treachery in the end. Some assassins took it further, sleeping in shifts, rigging their lairs with tripwires, or stashing blades under pillows. It's like living in a medieval spy thriller, only with more lice and fewer secret gadgets. The mind bends under that weight, always braced for the knife that might come from behind. Then there's the guilt, a quieter, but no less brutal foe. Taking a life leaves a mark even on the hardest soul. Some assassins tried to wash it away with faith, kneeling in dark chapels, muttering prayers to saints who probably weren't listening. Others turned to wine or poppy juice, chasing numbness to escape the faces that flickered behind closed eyes. Take the Borgias, that infamous Italian dynasty. They wielded poison like artists, but whispers say Cesare kept a private confessional for his sins. Sincere or just for show? Who knows? But finding a priest brave enough to hear those confessions must have been a job in itself. The guilt festers, a slow rot that gnaws at whatever humanity remains. Isolation rounds out the trio, a silent thief of sanity. To stay hidden, assassins cut ties, family, friends, even a real name become distant memories. They drift through life under false faces, a merchant one day, a beggar the next. No one knows the real you, and you can't let them. The risk is too high, one careless word, and the whole game unravels. Picture it, years spent dodging connection, your only company, the ghosts of your targets. Dating. Good luck. So what do you do? Oh, I work in pest control. It's a loneliness that hollows you out, leaving a shell where a person used to be. But assassins weren't just paranoid wrecks, they were clever too. To get close to their prey, they mastered the art of disguise, turning deception into a craft. They'd slip into a crowd as a peddler with a limp, a monk with a bowed head, or a noble with a fake accent and a velvet cape. Makeup, wigs, even a well-timed cough could sell the act. Some got fancy, with it mimicking voices or studying a target's habits so well they could pass as kin. The Sicarii Jewish rebels in Roman times hid daggers under their cloaks and struck in bustling markets, vanishing before anyone knew what hit them. It was a high-stakes performance where forgetting your lines meant a noose or worse. Imagine the stress. Am I a French trader today or a Scottish monk? Better get it right, or it's curtains. So what kind of person becomes an assassin? Were they born with ice in their veins, or did the world forge them that way? Historians still wrestle with this one. Some argue assassins were psychopaths, cold, calculating, untouched by empathy. A figure like Richard Kuklinski, the Iceman of later centuries, might fit that mold, killing without a flicker of remorse. But medieval assassins harder to pin down. The Hashashin were fanatics driven by faith and a promise of paradise, hardly unfeeling. Others, like the hired blades of Renaissance Italy, might have been desperate souls, pushed by poverty or blackmail into a life they didn't choose. Scholars point to cases like the assassination of Julius Caesar Brutus. Wasn't a monster, just a man tangled in politics and loyalty. So, nature or nurture? Maybe it's both. Some had the instinct, but the brutal medieval world sharpened it into a blade. You melt back into the fog, the deed done. The target's last gasp echoes in your ears, and the gold in your pouch clinks with every step. Cold, heavy, a poor trade for the warmth of a life you'll never know. Each kill carves a notch in your soul, a tally of what you've lost. The paranoia keeps you sharp, the guilt keeps you human, and the isolation keeps you safe. But at what cost? This isn't just a job. It's a cage you've locked yourself in, key long gone. The killer's mind is a battlefield strewn with the wreckage of who you might have been. And as the city fades into the mist behind you, one question lingers. How long can you keep this up before the enemy within wins? Imagine you're crouched in the shadows of a crumbling stone wall, the night air thick with the scent of damp earth and distant wood smoke. The moon hangs low, a mere sliver in the sky, casting just enough light to outline the world in faint silver. You don't need more than that. Your eyes have sharpened to the dark, your ears catch every rustle, and your mind hums with focus. This isn't some reckless whim. It's the grand finale of weeks, maybe months, of careful plotting. Every step, every breath, every heartbeat has been measured. In the ruthless game of medieval assassins, there's no room for mistakes. One slip, and you're not just gone, you're forgotten, a ghost erased from the pages of time. So how do you pull off the perfect hit? Let's walk through it, step by shadowy step, as if you're the one holding the dagger or the vial of poison. Gathering intelligence, know thy enemy. Before you even dream of striking, you need to know your target better than they know themselves. Where do they sleep? Who pours their wine? When do they let their guard down? In the medieval world, this meant slipping into their life like a whisper. You might drape yourself in a servant's rough tunic, haggle as a merchant with a crooked smile, or slump in the dirt as a beggar. No one spares a glance. Invisibility is your armor. Consider the assassination of Duke John the Fearless in 1419. The plotters didn't rush in blindly. They watched him for weeks, mapping his every move. They clocked the guards, lazy shifts, noted his favorite paths, and even tricked him into a meeting on a narrow bridge where escape was impossible. Patience was their weapon, and it paid off in blood. But it's not just about spying. You've got to read the bigger game. Who gains from this death? Who might shield your target? When Thomas Becket, The Archbishop of Canterbury was cut down in 1170. His killers had to weigh the clash between king and church. Staining a cathedral floor with holy blood wasn't just bold. It demanded a grasp of the power threading through every court and cloister. The wind picks up, tugging at your cloak as you scribble notes in the dark. A dog barks in the distance, and you freeze, heart thudding. Every detail matters, and you're starting to see the shape of your plan, choosing the method poison blade or something more creative. Now that you know your prey, how will you strike poisons a favorite, quiet, sneaky, and devilishly hard to trace? Medieval assassins had a grim little apothecary arsenic to stop a heart belladonna, to cloud the mind, or the legendary aqua di Fana, a slow poison that could stretch a death across days, leaving no one the wiser. Slip it into a goblet, and you're done assuming you can dodge the taster or bribe the cook. Too little, though, and your target just sweats it out. Too much, and suspicion flares. Blades are bolder. A dagger under the ribs, a slash across the throat. It's messy, but quick. The Hashishin, those fabled killers of the Middle East, preferred a public stage, stabbing their targets in broad daylight to scream their message to the world. That took guts and often a one-way ticket to the grave. But what about flair? There's a wild tale of the poison maiden, a woman trained to resist venom, sent to seduce a target and kill him with a kiss. True or not, it's the kind of story that makes you wonder just how far an assassin might stretch their craft. You sit back, weighing your options. The poison vial glints in your palm, but the dagger at your belt feels more certain. A choice looms, and the night grows colder. Preparing the tools, gadgets, and gizmos of death. No fancy gadgets here, but medieval assassins were clever with what they had. A lockpick carved from bone or twisted wire could tease open a bolted door. A clay pot stuffed with sulfur and pitch could burst into a choking smokescreen, perfect for a getaway. Disguises were your second skin, a cloak, with a reversible lining to flip your colors, a false beard glued with sap, or a wax nose to reshape your face. And that hollow staff leaning by the fire, it's hiding a blade sharper than sin. Your real weapon, though, is up here tapping your temple. You've got to outthink everyone. What if the target skips their usual supper? What if a guard lingers too long? Where's your exit? Every what if is a thread you've got to knot before the night unravels. The stars wheel overhead as you test your tools. The lockpick clicks, the smoke stings your nose, and the blade sings as it slides free. You're readier, as ready as you'll ever be. Executing the plan. The moment of truth. The day dawns, or maybe it's still night. Your moment doesn't care about the sun. You've memorized the castles, creaking halls, timed the guards, yawns, and picked your strike. Perhaps it's a feast with laughter and clinking cups drowning out your steps. Or the witching hour when the world sleeps under a blanket of silence. You glide forward, a shadow among shadows. Your pulse hammers, but your grip is iron. You've rehearsed this in your head 100 times. The target's close now. You hear their breath, see their silhouette. One motion, swift and sure, and it's over. But you're not safe yet. A shout, a spark of fire in the stables, or a brawl in the yard buys you time. By dawn, you're a speck on the horizon, blending into the endless stream of travelers. The deed fades behind you as the road stretches on. Your hands still tremble, but the night swallows your trail. The aftermath, living with the consequences. Victory's heavy. The coins in your purse clink like guilt, and every shadow hides a hunter. Did you miss a clue? Will they track you down? You've shifted histories. Gearskins might fall. Wars might spark all because of your steady hand. In the medieval world, where power was a chessboard of flesh and steel, assassins like you were the unseen players tipping the scales with a whisper. As you drift off tonight, think of those quiet threads weaving through history's tapestry. The smallest Tuga life snuffed out in the dark can redraw the whole pattern. Sleep tight, dreamer. The shadows are still out there planning their next perfect hit. You're perched on a rooftop, the night air cool against your skin, the city sprawling below like a tapestry of flickering lights and shifting shadows. Your target's manor looms across the square, its windows glowing with the warmth of hearth fires and the murmur of unsuspecting voices. But you're not alone tonight. A figure crouches beside you, their breath-steady eyes, sharp a fellow shadow, an ally in this deadly game. You've planned every detail they'll distract the guards with a well-timed commotion, while you slip through the servants' entrance, silent as a whisper. Trust is the thread binding your fates together. One misstep, one betrayal, and that thread snaps, plunging you both into the abyss. In the world of medieval assassins, allies were as essential as a sharp blade or a vial of poison. No killer, no matter how skilled, could navigate the labyrinth of power alone. They needed eyes in the dark hands to rig traps and voices to spread false tales. But trust was a fragile thing, a candle flickering in a storm. Betrayal lurked around every corner, and the line between friend and foe was as thin as a dagger's edge. Tonight, we'll explore the delicate dance of alliances in the assassin's world, where loyalty could be a lifeline or a noose. The necessity of allies, a web of whispers. Assassins rarely worked in isolation. They were part of intricate networks, guilds, orders, or shadowy brotherhoods that provided resources, intelligence, and protection. These alliances were the backbone of their operations, offering safe houses, forged documents, and even alibis when the heat of pursuit grew too intense. The Hashashin, for instance, operated as a tight-knit sect, their fortress at Alamut, a hive of operatives who shared secrets and strategies. Each member was a cog in a lethal machine, relying on the others to keep the gears turning smoothly. But it wasn't just about big organizations. Even lone wolves needed allies, a stable boy to slip a sedative into a noble's wine, a maid to leave a window unlatched, or a bard to spread rumors that would lure a target into the open. These weren't fellow assassins, but ordinary folk often unaware of the full scope of the plot. They were pawns moved with care and discarded when necessary. Trusting them was a calculated risk, like tossing a coin and hoping it landed on heads. Sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't, and when it didn't, the consequences were swift and brutal. The wind tugs at your cloak as you signal your ally with a quick gesture. They nod, slipping down the roof like a cat ready to play their part. You watch them go, a knot of unease tightening in your gut. Will they hold up their end, or will they sell you out for a pouch of gold? The question gnaws at you, but there's no time for doubt. The game is in motion, the price of betrayal. A dagger in the dark betrayal was the assassin's greatest fear, a specter that haunted every alliance. In a world where loyalty was bought and sold like grain at market, trust was a luxury few could afford. A single whisper to the wrong ear could unravel months of planning, turning the hunter into the hunted. History is littered with tales of assassins undone by their own kind. Take the case of the Borgia family in Renaissance Italy. Cesare Borgia, a master of intrigue, was betrayed by his own lieutenant, leading to his downfall. The lesson was clear in the shadows. No one was safe, not even from those who swore fealty. The consequences of betrayal were as varied as they were grim. Some assassins faced the wrath of their employers, who had little patience for failure or loose ends. Others were hunted by rival guilds, eager to eliminate competition. And then there were the authorities' king's lords and church officials, who spared no expense in rooting out those who dared to strike from the dark. Capture meant torture, a slow death, or a public execution designed to deter others. It was a brutal reminder that in this game, loyalty was a rare coin, and treachery was the currency of survival. Your allies signal "come a distant shout," followed by the clatter of overturned barrels. The guards rush toward the noise, leaving your path clear. You drop to the ground, heart pounding, and slip through the manor's side door. The air inside is thick with the scent of roasted meat and candle wax. You move like a shadow, every sense alert. But as you creep toward the target's chamber, a floorboard creaks underfoot. You freeze breath caught in your throat. Was that a footstep behind you? Or just the house-settling paranoia? Is a constant companion whispering doubts in your ear? Quirky allies, feathered friends, and furry accomplices. Not all allies were human. Some assassins turned to the animal kingdom for assistance, using creatures as tools in their deadly trade. Falcons, for instance, were prized for their ability to carry messages or even deliver small vials of poison. Trained dogs could create distractions, barking wildly to draw attention away from a sneaking killer. And in one particularly bizarre tale, a medieval assassin is said to have used a swarm of bees to cover his escape, releasing them from a hidden hive to scatter pursuers in a frenzy of stings. It's the kind of trick that sounds like it belongs in a bard's ballad, but in the assassin's world, creativity was often the difference between life and death. Here's a quirky tidbit: some assassins even used cats as unwitting accomplices. A feline could be sent into a target's home with a poisoned collar, or trained to steal small items that could be used as evidence. It's a reminder that in the medieval underworld, allies came in all shapes and sizes, Evan, the four-legged furry kind. The target's chamber door looms ahead, unguarded, just as planned. You slip inside the room, bathed in the soft glow of a single candle. Your target lies asleep, chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. The dagger feels heavy in your hand, but you hesitate. A sound of faint scratch at the window. You glance over, and there, perched on the sill, is a raven, its beady eyes fixed on you. A messenger from your ally, perhaps, or a spy for someone else. In this world, even the birds can't be trusted. The psychological toll, a mind on the edge. Living in a constant state of suspicion took a toll on the assassin's mind. Every alliance was a gamble, every partnership a potential trap. The stress of never knowing who to trust could fray even the steadiest nerves. Some assassins became paranoid, seeing threats in every shadow, jumping at every noise. Others grew cold, hardening their hearts to the point where trust was a forgotten concept. It was a lonely existence where the only true ally was oneself, and even that was debatable. Scholars still debate whether assassins were master manipulators or merely pawns in a larger game. Some argue that their ability to forge alliances, however fleeting, showed a keen understanding of human nature. Others say they were victims of their own mistrust, doomed to a life of isolation. Whatever the case, one thing is certain in the assassin's world: trust was a double-edged sword, as likely to save you as to slit your throat. The deed is done. You slip back into the night, the manor shrinking behind you. Your ally waits at the rendezvous, a grin splitting their face. Smooth as silk, they whisper, clapping you on the back. You nod, but your hand lingers near your dagger just in case. The job's over, but the game never ends. Trust is a fleeting thing, and in the shadows, betrayal is always a heartbeat away. Picture yourself in a medieval alley, the air heavy with mist and the faint stink of damp straw. You're an assassin cloaked in black, your breath shallow as you clutch a dagger. The target's just beyond that creaky wooden door, a noble who's crossed the wrong person. Your plans tied in out vanish, but then a dog barks, a guard turns, and your heart's hammering like a blacksmith's forge. One slip, and it's not just the mission that's done, it's you. Welcome to the life where every shadow's a threat and survival's a long shot. Snuggle up, because this story's about why most assassins like you didn't make it to old age. The immediate fallout caught in the act. So you messed up. The noble's awake screaming for his guards, and you're caught like a rat in a trap. That dagger you dropped, its evidence now glinting accusingly in the torchlight. Medieval folks didn't mess around with assassins. Caught in the act, you're not getting a slap on the wrist. It's straight to the dungeon, the walls slick with moss, the air thick with despair. Chains rattle as they lock you in, and you know what's coming. Torture's first on the menu. They've got tools that make a nightmare blush. Say hello to the rack, stretching you until your joints pop like firewood. Or the thumb screws, turning your fingers into a twisted plea for mercy. These weren't just for fun. They wanted names, plans, anything you'd spill. And here's a solid historical nugget. The Hashashin, those legendary Persian killers, faced this too. Their missions were so risky that capture meant a brutal and no exceptions. Their name might mean assassin, but it didn't mean survivor. Then comes the grand finale execution. If you're lucky, it's a quick chop. But fail big, and they'd string you up, letting you dangle while the crowd jeers. Or worse, they'd boil you in oil, your last moments a sizzling horror show. Every scream was a warning to the next fool with a blade. Sleep tight thinking about that one. Ever wonder how they spiced up the terror? Here's a quirky little tidbit. Some say executioners used a thing called the pear of anguish. Picture a metal pear that opens up inside you. Grim, right? But historians bicker over whether it was real or just a spooky story to keep assassins on their toes. Either way, the thought alone might have made you rethink that career choice. The long game betrayal and broken trust. Let's say you wriggle free, bolting into the night with your tail between your legs. You're safe, right, wrong. Failure's got a long memory. Your bossum hooded figure with a fat purse doesn't like loose ends. You're not an asset anymore. You're a risk. Next thing you know, there's a new assassin on your trail, one who doesn't botch the job. The Hashashin knew this game. If one of them flubbed it, the order might cut them loose, or worse, send a cleanup crew. Loyalty's a myth when gold's on the line. Even if you dodge that blade, your name's mud. The underworld's a small town, whispers spread fast. That's the one who failed, they'd mutter, and suddenly no one's slipping you contracts. You're a pariah, skulking from tavern to tavern, jumping at every clink of a tankard. Trust gone. Friends. They're just waiting to sell you out. Failure didn't just kill you, it erased you. History's hard lessons when plans go awry. Let's peek at some real flops. In 1272, King Edward I of England nearly bought it during the Crusades. An assassin may be sent by the Sultan snuck into his tent and grazed him with a poisoned knife. Edward fought back, lived to tell the tale, but the attacker caught tortured with hot irons, then strung up for the vultures. Failure turned him from predator to prey in a heartbeat. Or take 1478 Florence. The Pazzi family tried to gut Lorenzo de' Medici and his brother Giuliano in church holy ground no less. Giuliano went down, but Lorenzo slipped away. The fallout? A massacre. Conspirators were hanged, torn apart, or chased across borders. One guy ran to Constantinople, only to be hauled back and dangled like laundry. Failure didn't just end them, it made them history's punching bag. The mind's heavy load. Now imagine carrying that weight. Every night you're replaying the job did that shadow move. Was that a footstep? Your mind's a mess, buzzing like a hive of angry bees. Fear of failure wasn't just about the moment. It was the dread of what followed. You'd see threats everywhere, every creak, every glance. Sleep, a distant dream. You're wired waiting for the axe to fall. That stress could break you. Maybe your hand shakes at the wrong time or you're chugging ale to quiet the noise. Some assassins went solo, trusting no one, living like ghosts. And here's a question scholars love to toss around. Were you a ruthless pro, thriving on the edge, or just a desperate soul crushed by the grind? Some say assassins shaped history. Others reckon they were pawns chewed up and spat out. What's your take, masterminds or martyrs? Why risk it all? So why do it? Maybe you had no choice. Hunger or a dark past shoved you into the shadows. Or you craved the thrill, that rush of holding fate in your hands. Some even thought they were heroes striking for a cause. But whatever drove you, failure was the specter at the feastleways lurking ready to pounce. As you drift off, think of those assassins balancing on a knife's edge. Success was rare, failure was fatal, and the odds were never in their favor. Sweet dreams. Little shadow walker stick to tales of knights and castles. They've got better endings. Imagine a world where shadows hold secrets and every whisper could be a death sentence. In the medieval era, assassins were the unseen hands of power, their lives governed by a strict set of rules known only to those who walk the path of shadows. These underworld codes were the invisible threads that bound their deadly brotherhood, dictating everything from loyalty to the art of the kill. Tonight we'll unravel these codes, stepping into a realm where honor and treachery danced a deadly waltz beneath the flicker of torchlight. The wind howls through the narrow alleys of a medieval city, carrying with it the scent of smoke and the distant clang of a blacksmith's hammer. You're an assassin cloaked in darkness, your heart pounding as you slip through the shadows. Your mission is etched into your mind, your loyalty, a chain that binds you to your order. But as you approach your targets, Lara crumbling tower, silhouetted against the moon, a flicker of doubt creeps in. What if this is a trap? What if your employer has betrayed you? You push the thought aside, gripping the hilt of your dagger. Loyalty is your shield. But in this world, even shields can shatter. The code of loyalty. Loyalty was the bedrock of an assassin's existence. Whether pledged to a secretive order like the Hashashin who operated from their mountain fortress of Alamutr, bound to a ruthless noble, an assassin's allegiance was unbreakable. Betrayal wasn't merely a misstep. It was a death knell both for the traitor and their reputation. The Hashashin followers of the enigmatic Old Man of the Mountain were legendary for their devotion. They believed their loyalty earned them a place in paradise, a reward worth any sacrifice. Take the tale of a young Hashashin sent to eliminate a Crusader lord in the dusty streets of Jerusalem. The mission was a suicide. Run guards swarmed the target like bees around a hive. Yet he struck his blade, finding its mark before he fell beneath a hail of arrows. His brothers didn't mourn. They celebrated his loyalty, whispering his name as a hero who'd upheld the code. This fierce dedication made the Hashashin both feared and revered, their name echoing through history. The tavern is alive with the hum of voices and the clink of tankards. You sit in a dimly lit corner, your hood pulled low, nursing a mug of ale that's long gone warm. Across the room, your contacta fellow, assassin, catches your eye. With a subtle nod and a flick of your fingers, you exchange the night's plan, a name, a place, a time. No words are spoken, no glances linger. The barmaid brushes past, oblivious to the deadly pact sealed in silence. In this world, secrecy is survival. One wrong move, one careless whisper, and the shadows will swallow you whole. The code of secrecy. Secrecy was the lifeblood of the assassin's craft. Every detail, their true names, their families, the very existence of their missions was locked away behind a wall of silence. Assassins donned aliases like armor, their faces shrouded by hoods or masks. They spoke in codes, a raised eyebrow, a scratch symbol on a wall, a phrase that sounded innocent to outsiders but carried lethal intent. This secrecy wasn't just strategy, it was survival, ensuring that a captured assassin couldn't unravel the entire web. The Hashashin mastered this art, using hand signals and veiled phrases to orchestrate assassinations in bustling markets or quiet courts. In Europe, some guilds took it further, branding their members with hidden tattoos, a coiled snake beneath a sleeve, a dagger etched into a palm, visible only to those who knew where to look. Once a captured assassin in Venice bit off his own tongue, rather than speak his silence, a final act of defiance that preserved his order's mysteries. The moonlight filters through the stained glass window, casting a kaleidoscope of colors on the stone floor of a grand hall. You stand over your target, a sleeping noble whose breath rises and falls in blissful ignorance. The dagger trembles in your hand, not from fear, but from the weight of the code, no innocence, no unnecessary pain. His wife sleeps beside him, her hair spilling across the pillow. You hesitate, then strike swift, precise, sparing her. On the noble's chest, you leave a single black feather, a mark of justice done. Honor satisfied, you melt back into the night. The code of honor. Honor among assassins might sound like a jest, but even killers clung to a twisted moral compass. Some refused to harm women or children, their blades reserved for those deemed worthy targets. Others insisted on a fair fighter, as fair as a dagger in the dark, could be facing their prey rather than striking from behind. It was a strange chivalry, born not of kindness, but of pride in their craft. Here's a curious quirk certain guilds left calling cards at their kills. A pressed flower, a notched coin, a feather dyed crimson. This wasn't mere bravado. It was a declaration. This was no random death. This was our work. In one tale, an assassin in Florence left a silver ring on a duke's corpse, sparking a citywide hunt that never found him. Scholars argue over these codes. Were they real ethics or just myths spun by bards? Some say assassins were ruthless pragmatists. Others insist these rules kept their shadowy society from crumbling into chaos. The forest is silent, the trees standing like sentinels in the moonlight. You've been summoned to a clearing, where your order's leader waits his cloak, billowing like a storm cloud. Your heart thunders as you step forward, the weight of your sin pressing down. You struck on a holy day, defying the code. The air grows thick with judgment, the rustle of leaves the only sound. Your brothers encircle you, their eyes glinting with cold purpose. In this world, the code is law, and breaking it is a debt paid in blood. The code of conduct. Beyond the grand ideals of loyalty and honor, there were practical rules the nuts and bolts of murder. Some codes demanded a face-to-face kill, a test of nerve and skill. Others required a clean death, no lingering torment, as if efficiency were a virtue. The Hashishin favored public strikes, a single thrust in a crowded square turning murder into theater that sowed terror. Their precision was their signature, a message to rulers: nowhere is safe. In Europe, guilds added their own quirks. Killing on holy days or in churches was taboo, partly from fear of divine wrath, partly to dodge the church's iron fist. One assassin tasked with slaying a bishop waited 3 days outside a cathedral, striking only when the man stepped onto secular soil. Another rule bodies were often hidden weighted with stones, and sunk in rivers to erase the deed, leaving only whispers in their wake. The air grows heavy as you kneel before the cliffs, edge the wind tugging at your cloak. Below, the rocks of Alamut gleam like jagged teeth in the starlight. You broke the code, sold a secret for gold, and now your brothers have judged you. The old man's voice is a low rumble. His words, a sentence leap and let the shadows claim you. You stand the abyss, yawning wide, and step forward. In this world, betrayal isn't just death, it's erasure. Consequences of breaking the code. Breaking the code was a sin beyond forgiveness. Traitors and rule breakers faced the wrath of their Ona hunt, relentless and merciless. For the Hashishin, punishment was ritualistic, a leap from Alamut's cliffs, their bodies a grim warning to others. In Europe, it might be a dagger in the night, or a trial by combat, the offender forced to fight until they fell. The goal wasn't just to kill, it was to cleanse the order of weakness. One story tells of a rogue assassin in Paris who took a bribe to spare a target. His guild tracked him for months, cornering him in a rat-infested alley. They didn't just slit his throat, they carved their symbol into his chest, a mark for the underworld to see. The code's enforcers were shadows among shadows, ensuring that trust, once broken, was buried deep. The underworld codes of medieval assassins were more than rules. They were the heartbeat of their hidden world. Loyalty bound them. Secrecy shielded them. Honor guided them. And conduct shaped their deadly art. These codes forged order in a trade steeped in chaos, a fragile balance between trust and terror. Yet, as we've seen, to defy them was to court a fate darker than death itself. As you drift to sleep, picture the assassins life-bound by these unseen chains, their every step a dance with danger. The next time a floorboard creaks or a shadow shifts, think of them silent, swift, and ruled by codes that held their world together, even as it teetered on the edge of oblivion. Imagine you're perched in a medieval castle courtyard, the moon casting jagged shadows across the cobblestones. The air's chilly tinged with the smoky scent of dying torches, and every creak of the wind sounds like a conspirator's whisper. You're clutching a dagger, heart pounding, plotting a move that could rewrite history. That's the assassin's game, one life snuffed out, and kingdoms could crumble, wars ignite, or new eras dawn. Tonight, we're not just talking about sneaky stabs in the dark. We're exploring how assassinations shape the world, bending its path like a river redirected by a fallen tree. So settle in, and let's wander through 3 tales, where a single death changed everything. Thomas Becket's Cathedral Curtain Call, 1170. You're standing in Canterbury Cathedral, now the air heavy with incense and the faint hum of chanted prayers. It's December 29th, 1170, and Thomas Becket, Archbishop Extraordinaire, kneels before the altar, his robes a cascade of crimson and gold. The stained glass glows faintly, casting eerie colors across the cold stone floor. Suddenly, the doors crash open, 4 knights storm in their boots, echoing like war drums. Where's the traitor one snarls. Becket stands tall, calm as a saint in a storybook. Here I am no traitor, but a priest of God. Then chaos swords slash blood spills, and his skull cracks open like a grim piata. It's messy, brutal, and over in moments. This wasn't just a murder. It was a power play gone wrong. Becket and King Henry II had been buddies once, but their bromance soured over who got to boss the church around. Henry wanted control. Becket said, "Not on my watch." Tensions boiled until Henry allegedly grumbled, "Will no one rid me of this turbulent priest?" A line that's basically medieval mic drop material. The knights took it and ran. But here's the kicker: did Henry mean it as an order, or was it just a royal tantrum? Scholars still tussle over that one. Either way, the aftermath was wild. Henry had to eat crow getting whipped by monks in public penance, while Becket's death handed the church a PR win and a martyr to boot. England's power balance shifted, and the crown never quite recovered its swagger. For a weird twist, Becket's blood became a medieval must-have. Pilgrims flocked to his shrine, sopping up the gore with cloths, or diluting it into Becket's water for miracles. It's like the original influencer, merch saintly bloody and oh so trendy. The cathedral fades as you blink, the scent of incense lingering like a ghost. One man down and history's gears grind on. Let's hop across time and space to a land of windmills and rebellion, where another assassination lit a fuse. William of Orange's Deadly Delft, exit 1584. Now you're in Delft, 1584. The Dutch Republic, buzzing like a beehive, kicked over. The streets smell of sea salt and tension. The distant clatter of muskets, a constant reminder of war with Spain. William of Orange, the rebel leader, dubbed Father of the Fatherland, is strolling through his home, maybe humming a tune, when Balthazar Grard steps out, a Catholic fanatic with a pistol and a grudge. 2 shots crack the air, and William staggers, blood pooling on the wooden floor. His last words, "My God, have pity on my soul. My God, have pity on this poor people." Poetic even in the clutch. His death didn't kill the Dutch revolt, it supercharged it. His sons grabbed the reins, and the fight raged on until the Netherlands broke free. It's like a Netflix cliffhanger that actually pays off. But was Grard a solo act, or Spain's hired gun? Some historians point fingers at King Philip II. Others say it was just one man's zeal gone wild. The jury's still out. But William's murder turned him into a legend, his sacrifice, the spark that lit a nation's birth. Here's the quirky bit: his dog Pompey supposedly starved itself to death out of loyalty. Picture that, a pup so heartbroken it gave up kibble. It's the kind of loyalty that makes you want to hug your own pet a little tighter tonight. The gunfire's echo softens as you turn away, the Dutch wind whispering through your hair. One more stop, one more death. That flip the scriptlets, head to Rome, where betrayal wears a toga. Julius Caesar's Senate Stab Fest, 44 BC. You're in Rome now. 44 BC, the Senate, a hotbed of whispers and sharp glances. The air's warm, tinged with olive oil and ambition. Julius Caesar sweeps in fresh from conquering Gaul, his toga swishing, like he owns the place, which, let's be honest, he kinda does. He sits smirking when the trap springs. Senators crowd around Brutus, Cassius, the whole gang daggers gleaming. Et tu, Brute, he gasps as they stab him 23 times, turning the Senate floor into a Roman crime scene. Spoiler: Shakespeare made that line up, but it's too good not to mention. This wasn't just a hit. It was the Republic's funeral. The conspirators thought they'd saved democracy, but oops, civil war broke out. and Caesar's adopted kid Augustus turned Rome into an empire. Classic backfire. Were they patriots or power grabbers? Historians can't agree some call. Brutus a hero, others a traitor with a knife. Either way, Caesar's death was the domino that toppled a system proving even legends bleed. For a fun fact, Caesar's will give every Roman citizen a chunk of cash and land a posthumous flex that kept his name on everyone's lips. Dead, but still winning the popularity contest. The Senate's chaos fades, leaving you with the rustle of togas and the weight of what's been lost. 3 deaths, 3 turning points, Beckett's clash of faith and crown, William's rebel swan song, Caesar's empire maker. Each blade carved a new path, proving assassins don't just kill. They sculpt history's messy, marvelous shape. So as you drift off, picture those shadows, knights, gunmen, senators, all playing their part in the grand sleepy saga. Were they villains or visionaries? That's for you to ponder as the night wraps you in its quiet embrace. Sweet dreams, or maybe conspiracies to unravel in your sleep. Imagine yourself perched on a crumbling castle wall, the night air biting at your skin, a dagger clutched in your trembling hand. The stars above are cold and indifferent, and the distant howl of a wolf reminds you just how alone you are. You've spent this journey peering into the shadowy world of medieval assassins, the myths, the brutal training, the political webs, the crude tools, the haunting toll it took. Now, as the fire in the hearth dwindles to embers, let's step back and ask, could you really hack it as one of these silent killers? Spoiler alert, you couldn't, and trust me, you wouldn't want to. Let's unpack why this life is a one-way ticket to misery, and why you're better off snuggled under your blanket than skulking through history's dark alleys. First, let's ditch the fairy tales. You've probably pictured yourself as some dashing rogue cloaked in black, slipping through the night with a smirk. But the reality far less glamorous. Medieval assassins weren't swashbuckling legends. They were grunts in a deadly game pawns for the powerful. The Hashashin, those fabled killers of the Crusades, might sound cool whispered about as drug-fueled zealots, but they were cannon fodder for their masters. Their missions were suicide runs, and one wrong move meant a messy end. You'd be no different. No epic soundtrack, no slow-motion heroics, just a short, brutal life where the odds were always against you. Now picture the training. You're not just learning to swing a sword or sneak around. You're being forged into a weapon, and the process is savage. Think of scaling a jagged cliff in the dead of night, your hands torn and bloody, the wind clawing at you like an angry spirit. Fall, and you're done. Survive, and it's on to the next test hours of drills, starvation, maybe even a taste of poison to toughen you up. The Hashashin didn't mess around. Recruits who couldn't cut it were weeded out fast, often permanently. You, with your modern softness, would crumble before the first week was out. And that's before the mental grind learning to kill without blinking, to shut off your soul. Could you do it? Doubtful. Let's talk politics, because that's where it gets messy. You'd be a hired hand, a shadow puppet for kings and nobles with their own agendas. 1 minute, you're taking out a rival duke. The next, your boss is swearing he's never heard of you. Loyalty was a myth, betrayal was the norm. Take the 1272 plot against King Edward I. The assassins got nabbed, tortured, until they sang, then strung up for the crows. That's your fate if you slip up, and slipping up was easy. A nosy servant, a loud floorboard, a twitchy horse your toast. You'd spend every day looking over your shoulder, wondering when the blade would turn on you. Here's a weird little tidbit. To lighten the mood, some assassins played guinea pig with their own poisons. Yep, they'd sip a tiny dose, maybe some arsenic or hemlock hoping to build a tolerance. Imagine that as your morning routine: a bit of bread, a sip of water, a dash of death. It's like medieval self improvement, except the stakes are your guts turning inside out. Not exactly a job with great benefits. Then there's the headspace. You'd live in a cage of paranoia, every creak a threat, every friend a potential snitch. Sleep. Barely. You'd doze with a knife in hand, jolting awake at every rustle. Each kill would stick with you, faces, screams, the weight of it all piling up like stones on your chest. Historians argue over this: were assassins, slick pros, or just wrecked souls who couldn't escape? The truth probably lies in the middle. But either way, it's a mental marathon you wouldn't finish. You're not wired for that kind of darkness. Not many are. The tools wouldn't help your case either. No fancy gadgets here, just a dagger that might rust a vial of poison, that could spill a disguise that's basically a hood and some dirt on your face. If your blade jams or your poison's off, you're the one paying the price. Picture brewing a toxin in a damp hideout, hands shaking, praying you don't inhale the fumes. It's less James Bond, more desperate DIY, and you'd be terrible at it. In the big picture, sure, assassinations could shake the world. Thomas Becket's murder in 1170 flipped England upside down, and Julius Caesar's death rewrote Rome. But you're not changing history. You're a grunt, a disposable cog. Succeed, and someone else takes the credit. Fail, and you're a cautionary tale, your name lost to the wind. The power brokers keep spinning their webs, and you're just a thread they cut when it suits them. So why not you? Because you'd never make it, and that's a blessing. This life was a meat grinder high, stakes low rewards, and a grim end. You'd face death daily, not just from enemies, but from your own side, your own mind, your own shaky hands. Morally, it's a swamp killing for coin or cause leaving chaos in your wake. Practically, it's a disaster, no safety net, no retirement plan, just a shallow grave, if you're lucky. You're not built for that, and you don't need to be. As the night wraps around you, let these shadows fade. Feel the softness of your pillow, the warmth of your room, luxuries no assassin ever knew. You've walked their path, tasted their air, and now you can leave it behind. History's a wild ride, but it's not your story. So breathe deep, let the echoes of daggers and deceit drift away, and sink into a sleep where the only battles are in your dreams. Good night, you clever time traveler. Tomorrow's a new tale.